Deep in a dark grove of bamboo, one slender stalk began to glow, soft and golden and quietly alive. High above the grove, the full moon hung very close, as though it were watching, as though it were waiting. Inside that bamboo, an old man would find a child more lovely than the dawn. He would love her as his own, and one day, though he did not yet know it, she would break his heart. This is the tale of the shining princess, Kaguya. His name was Taketori no Okina, the old man who cut bamboo. On this night, trembling, he parted the glowing stalk with his blade. And there, in the hollow, no taller than the length of his hand, sat a tiny girl, radiant, calm, smiling up at him. "Surely," he whispered, "you were meant to be my child." Gently, he cupped her in his hands and carried her home. The old woman wept with joy, for they had never had a child of their own. They cared for the little girl as if she were made of moonlight, and she grew, not slowly as other children grow, but swiftly, like the moon swelling toward full. And there was another wonder. From that night on, whenever the old man cut open a stalk of bamboo, he found gold gleaming softly inside. The poor couple soon wanted for nothing at all. In just 3 months, the tiny child had become a young woman, and her beauty was unlike anything in this world. Her skin seemed lit from within. A soft glow filled the whole house, so that even the darkest night felt gentle and warm. They held a great feast, and a wise man was called to give her a name. He called her Nayotake no Kaguya Hime, the shining princess of the supple bamboo. Kaguya, the shining one. Beauty like hers could not stay hidden. Word spread from village to village, from province to province, until all the young men of the land had heard of the shining princess. They came and gathered at the old man's gate, day and night, in rain and cold, hoping only for a glimpse of her through the screens. Most in time gave up and drifted home, but 5 did not. 5 great lords would not leave, princes and ministers of the court, each certain he alone deserved her. The old man begged her to choose one and marry. But Kaguya did not wish to marry at all, so she set each of them a single, impossible thing to bring her. "Bring me what I ask," she said, "and I will be your wife." 5 lords, 5 treasures that perhaps did not exist. To the first, Prince Ishitsukuri, she said, "Bring me the stone begging bowl of the Buddha from the Holy Land far across the sea." The prince had no wish to sail across the world. He was a clever man and a lazy one. So he waited 3 years, then took a blackened, dusty bowl from a poor mountain temple, wrapped it in fine brocade, and carried it to her as though he had crossed the world and back. But the true bowl of the Buddha was said to shine with a holy light. Kaguya looked at the dull, dark thing in his hands and saw no light at all. To be sure, she sent back a poem, asking why the bowl did not so much as glimmer like a firefly. The prince's face burned with shame. He flung the false bowl down at the gate and fled. To the second, Prince Kuramochi, she said, "Bring me a branch from the jeweled tree of Mount Horai, the floating mountain of the immortals, where the roots are silver, the trunk is gold, and the fruit are white jewels." The prince let it be known he had sailed away on a great voyage. But in secret, he hid himself, hired the 6 finest goldsmiths in the land, and had them labour 3 years to to forge a jeweled branch of breathtaking beauty. When the branch was ready, he carried it to Kaguya with a long and stirring tale of storms and demons and the shining mountain rising from the sea. The branch was so perfect that Kaguya's heart sank within her. For the first time, she feared her bluff had failed, that she would truly have to keep her word and marry a man she did not love. But just then, the 6 goldsmiths arrived at the gate, loud and angry, holding out a bill, for the prince had never paid them for the branch they made in secret. The whole court heard their cry. The forgery was laid bare. Kaguya laughed with relief and returned the branch, and the proud prince fled into the hills, too ashamed ever to show his face again. To the third, the minister, Abe no Mimuraji, she said, "Bring me a robe woven from the fur of the fire rat, the cloth that cannot burn." The minister was rich. He sent his gold across the sea to a foreign merchant, who in time returned with a robe of deep, glistening blue-green, packed in a beautiful chest, swearing it was the true and priceless thing. The minister brought it to Kaguya, glowing with pride. But Kaguya only smiled. "There is one way to know," she said. "The true robe of the fire rat will not burn." And she laid it in the flames. In a moment, the lovely cloth blazed up and crumbled to ash. It was a fake, like all the rest. The minister stood staring at the empty fire and went home with nothing but his shame. To the fourth, the Grand Counselor Otomo no Miyuki, she said, "Bring me the 5-colored jewel from the neck of a living dragon." This lord did not cheat. He swore he would take it by force and set sail upon the sea to hunt the dragon down. But the sky turned black, and a terrible storm rose up, thunder and mountains of water, and his ship was thrown about like a leaf. For days the storm hurled them, until the counselor, half drowned and trembling, became certain the dragon itself was punishing his pride. When at last the sea cast him up on a far shore, he had aged years in a single night. He gave up the jewel and the princess, declaring to all that the shining dragon jewel was a curse no man should ever seek. To the fifth, the middle counselor, Isonokami no Marotari, she said, "Bring me the easy birth shell that a swallow is said to hold when it nests." This was the gentlest lord and the most earnest. He had himself raised in a basket to the swallow's nests beneath the palace eaves, reaching for the hidden shell. But the basket slipped and he fell. And when his servants opened his hand, they found he had grasped only a hard lump of nothing. Soon after, his hurt and his heartbreak took his life. Of the 5, only he had truly tried, and it was he the princess mourned. At last, word of the shining princess reached the emperor himself. He sent a court lady to look upon her, but Kaguya would not be seen. She would not show her face even to the messenger of the throne. Intrigued as never before, the emperor sent word, "Bring your daughter to serve at my court, and I will raise your family high." The old man was overjoyed, but Kaguya refused. "If you force me to the palace," she told him softly, "I will simply vanish away." So the emperor devised a gentler plan. He arranged a royal hunt that happened to pass the old man's house, and there, by chance, he stepped inside and saw her. In that moment, her glow filled the room, and he understood that the tales had not been enough. He reached for her hand to take her with him, but before his eyes her form went dim, fading like a reflection on water. "You see," she said gently, "I am not someone you can keep." Moved beyond words, he let her stay. He could not forget her. And though she would never come to him, she did not forget him either. For 3 years, the Emperor and the Shining Princess sent each other poems, words carried back and forth across the city, tender and full of longing. 2 souls who understood one another and could never be together. It was, for a while, a quiet kind of happiness, but it could not last. For Kaguya began to change. On clear nights, when the moon rose full and bright, she would go out alone and sit and gaze up at it and weep. The old couple found her like this again and again, tears falling silently in the moonlight. "What is it?" they begged. "What sorrow could you have who are loved by everyone?" But she only shook her head and would not say. Her tears grew worse with every passing month as the year turned toward its brightest moon. At last, she could keep it no longer. "I am not a child of this world," she said. "I was born in the palace of the moon. I was sent down to live among you for a little while, and now my time is ending. On the night of the next full moon, my people will come to carry me home, and I do not have the power to refuse them." The old man held her and wept. "I will not let them take you," he said. "Whatever they are, I will not let you go." When the emperor heard, he would not stand by. He sent 2,000 warriors to the old man's house, archers upon the roof, swordsmen at every door and gate, a wall of soldiers ringing the little home. "Let the heavens themselves come," they said. "We will turn them back." Kaguya only looked at them sadly. "Your arrows will not fly," she said. "Your courage will mean nothing. But I thank you all the same." Inside, the old woman held her close and would not let go. Near midnight, the darkness began to lift. A light grew in the sky, soft at first, then brighter than any noon, until the whole earth shone. Down from the moon came a great shining cloud, drifting slowly to the earth, and upon it rode beings of the moon, calm, beautiful, and unbearably bright. The 2,000 warriors raised their bows, but their arms went weak as water. Their arrows fell from their hands, and not one man could move a single step. From the shining cloud, a moon messenger stepped forward, holding 2 things. In one hand, a cup of the elixir of life, the medicine of the immortals. In the other, a feathered robe, the hagoromo, light as mist. "Hurry, princess," he said. "Your time below is finished." And he told her what she already knew, that the moment the feathered robe touched her shoulders, all her earthly feelings would fall away. Every sorrow, every memory, every love she had known on the earth, gone as though it had never been. So Kaguya turned, while she still could, to say goodbye. She wrote 2 letters, one for the old couple who had loved her, and one for the emperor. She tasted a little of the elixir of life, and left the rest, with her letter, for him. "Do not grieve," she told her weeping parents. "When you look up at the moon, look for me there." Then the moon people laid the feathered robe upon her shoulders, and as it settled, her tears dried, her sorrow faded, and the old man and woman grew dim and far away. She rose upon the shining cloud, up and up into the night, until she was only one more light among the stars. The emperor read her letter and could not be comforted. What use, he asked, was a medicine to live forever in a world that no longer held her? So he gave the elixir of life and her last letter to his most trusted men, and commanded them to carry them to the peak of the mountain nearest to heaven, and there to burn them both. They say the smoke of that burning rises from the mountaintop even now. And that is how the mountain came to be called Fuji, the Deathless. This is the tale of the bamboo cutter, Taketori Monogatari, said to be the oldest story in all Japan. In it live the things this land has always treasured: the quiet beauty of the moon, the gentle sorrow that all things must someday pass, and the white peak of Fuji, born from a love that could not hold on.